Good morning, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another episode of Lovin Daily. I'm Julian Bonnici. Joining me today is Yannick Parch. We've got a really cool show for you today. Our first story is all about how COVID-19 measures have been relaxed, seeing changes to quarantine period. However, there's actually no green light for standing events in Malta. The second story is about Malta's continued power cuts, with Malta Scala residents being left without power for almost 20 hours yesterday. The third story is all about the controversy erupting in the US with Activision and Blizzard's sexual harassment allegations and how Malta's gaming community feels about it. Then we're on to the third story, how Malta's former president joined activists to protest the separation of Turkish mothers from their children. And the last story is about how PN youths staged a sunbed protest in Valletta, calling out the Prime Minister for enjoying summer holidays. But that's not all we've got in store for you today. We've also got a really cool interview with Erica Muscat. She's playing Frances in a strip, Reggio Sara Villanuzzi. That's a new Maltese film, all about a really cool plot to assassinate Mitov. It's a really cool film. It's coming out soon. Make sure you go and watch it when it does come out. Yannick, our first story, COVID-19, some new measures, right?
So yes, yesterday Deputy Prime Minister Chris Fearn and Superintendent for Public Health Charmaine Gauci announced the relaxation of more COVID-19 measures. The main takeaway is that as of the 16th of August, seated events can now increase from a maximum capacity of 200 to 300, and this will increase further to 500 by the end of the month. The Deputy Prime Minister also announced that the quarantine period for people who come into contact with COVID-positive individuals will fall from 14 days to 7 days. This doesn't apply to anyone who either contracts COVID-19 himself, anyone who lives with someone who has COVID-19, or someone who is flying into the country. The Deputy Prime Minister also announced that the government was now changing its advice with regards to pregnant women, who are now being advised to take the jab as long as they are within the second or third trimester and after having consulted with their doctors. News of the relaxation was welcomed by some, but large parts of the entertainment industry were disappointed by it. Many expected that the Prime Minister would announce the opening of standing events. In fact, many operators have been advertising and selling tickets for events later on this month, thinking that the measures would be relaxed. However, this did not happen. And in fact, the entertainment lobby yesterday even called on government to compensate organizers who would suffer losses as a result.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can really understand, why they're upset, with the reason, there's an industry that's been struggling for a long time, and really needs that extra push. From my end, personally, I can't understand why there's all this, overcautious to move forward, this insistence for us to, not even make, some sort of progress in moving forward, despite the fact that we've had a really amazing vaccination program, a really good inoculation program. Most people who have been inoculated already would likely willingly get a booster shot anyway, so things are looking really positive. The number of cases actually really isn't that high. Yesterday there were 78 new cases and 204 recoveries, with active cases now just at 1,206. And hospitalizations thankfully remain quite low. Now I understand the concerns and everything, but we can't live like this forever. It's really time for us to start moving forward. It's going to be scary, but sometimes you just got to rip the band-aid off as quickly as possible. On to our next story. Power cuts across Malta amid a sweltering heat wave have continued after Malta Scala residents were left without power for 20 hours yesterday. I mean, I can just imagine, ACs aside, can you imagine your fridge, sort of all the stock going out, you can't do anything, it's actually a really frustrating scenario. Businesses were also affected by it. Daniel Grech of Burgers Inc. sort of detailed how he had to throw away stock, just what, a restaurant needs during the COVID economy, where they're really struggling to make ends meet. Now, the reason behind the cut was two faults in a high voltage cable. However, it was actually quite concerning how long it took them to actually find it. And all of these power cuts, remember, are happening, just as the public inquiry of Daphne Caruana Galizia had been published, another refocus on electrogas, making everyone think, why did we get that power station in the first place, right?
No, I mean, as you said, what surprises me is the length of time it takes to identify the problem, because, I mean, at the end of the day, you expect a fault, and the fault can happen, but for it to take 20 hours to locate it and address it is not acceptable in 2021. In fact, the Energy Minister Lovin Daily even said the same thing when confronted by journalists. She said this was unacceptable, but I mean, she is the one in charge, so we expect better from government in this regard. Our fourth story is about Malta's gaming community, which has weighed in on the recent controversy surrounding Activision Blizzard, the video game maker, which has found itself fighting mounting allegations of workplace harassment and discrimination. The company is being sued by the state of California following a 2-year investigation which revealed a frat boy-like culture in which men joked about rape and harassed women. It also found that women were paid less than their male counterparts. A giant of the gaming world and the company behind games like World of Warcraft and Call of Duty. The news of the accusations have come as a disappointment to local gamers. In fact, local gamer and influencer Rachel Take said she was saddened by the allegations since she had always considered World of Warcraft to be the best thing that ever happened to her. She described the allegations as disgusting and said that she hoped that the company would take necessary steps to remedy the situation and prosecute those responsible if necessary. Kevin Farrugia, the founder of local esports company Level Academy, told Love in Malta that he was also saddened by the accusations, and if proven to be true, that they would be truly shocking. He said such behavior wasn't acceptable, especially from such a big company. Another local player, James Kirkhope, who's the founder of JMR Entertainment, said he hoped that what was happening would send a clear message to employers who routinely threaten their employees.
Yeah, I mean, I think just like an important message, right, to go along with this is, sometimes when we see here's a big sexual harassment allegation happening in the US, right, we really don't think it happens here, where actually in Malta, workplace environments are rife with sexual harassment. I mean, just a few months ago, Lovin Malta did sort of a whole expose detailing, first-hand accounts from people who have experienced daily sexual harassment, whether it's at work, whether it's out on the street, whether, it's at home, So this is actually a really common issue, and, maybe it's time, we start addressing it more than with laws and with an actual serious culture change, within our workplace environments. Fingers crossed, yeah, it's a hard thing to do, but, it is 2021 at the end of the day. On to our next story. Malta's former President Marie-Louise Colero-Preca joined activists outside Malta's courts in a protest over the sentencing of 2 Turkish mothers, and in the process ripping them apart from their toddlers because of it. Rabia Yavuz and Mazeka Deneri were arrested in Malta on their way to Germany using forged passports. They said they did so because they were fleeing what they say was an oppressive Turkish regime under Erdogan. What that meant was their young toddlers who were 2 and 4 were immediately ripped away from them and taken into state care, with the mothers actually having minimal to no access to their children, which the activists noted is actually in breach of their human rights. Now, yesterday, the activists sort of said the case reeks of institutionalized racism. They said that, this shows that there's a clear discrepancy in how foreigners are treated in front of the courts and how locals are treated in front of the courts, with foreigners oftentimes receiving far harsher sentences. Now, the activists joined by Colero-Preca, made several demands to the state. First of all, they're calling for a complete judicial review, right, of the current system in place that sort of even allowed, for a court to rip away mothers from their children on, a relatively minorish crime. And they also said, there has to be a immediate change to the sentence itself currently. There has to be some way where you're going to be able to guarantee access, to these children, to these mothers.
I find it quite shocking how the law, which is clearly not well adapted to dealing with certain modern day scenarios, results in these situations, but despite that, it doesn't change. You think that kind of when you see the law kind of working against the interest of two innocent children, one would think that you'd stop and think of how this can be fixed, but apparently not. So on to our final story. The PN's youth wing Team Start yesterday set up deck chairs in front of Parliament as a symbolic protest, accusing the Prime Minister and the Speaker of the House of enjoying their summer holidays instead of getting down to work. The protest came as a response to the Speaker's decision not to reconvene Parliament from summer recess to discuss a no-confidence motion in Justice Minister Edward Zambit-Lewis. The motion was presented after it was revealed that Zambit-Lewis had mocked efforts to have the mysterious company 17 Black investigated with Jorgen Fenech. Jorgen Fenech is known to be the owner of the company, but despite the PN's request, the government did not agree to reconvening Parliament, and the Speaker said this would not happen. The youths aged between 4 and 18 gathered in Valletta and replicated a beach scene as a way of satirically communicating that matters should be taken more seriously. The youth organization spoke out, stressing that Malta should be working day and night to get the country off grey listing. Lovin Malta also spoke to Team Start President Yves Borch-Bonello, who led the demonstration and who said that who reiterated that students expected those in power to be working day and night 7 days a week to fix the current grey listing situation, as well as to implement the recommendations from the public inquiry into the assassination of Daphne Caruana Galizia.
Yeah, and it's actually not only Team Start, right, who think, the Speaker and the Prime Minister should be handling things more seriously. Yesterday, four former parliamentary speakers, including former Prime Minister Lawrence Gonzi, boycotted a Speaker's symposium marking 100 years of Parliament, sort of saying the same thing, right? More urgent matters need to be discussed. And personally, I need to agree with both of them, right? For one, if we ever needed a Malta's Parliament, Malta's Prime Minister to roll up their sleeves and actually get working, it's now. We're grey-listed. The next plenary session for FATF is in October. We need to be working day and night, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. to try solve the crisis we're in. Instead, we have a Prime Minister at the moment who's not taking action on our Justice Minister, despite very grave allegations, And I know it's summertime. I know the Prime Minister likes to get on his boat every now and then, but that now is the time to work. It's actually when the country needs him. We actually need him to act as soon as possible. That's it for us for now, but stay tuned. We're just going to play the trailer of a strip, Regia Saru Velanuzzi, and then we've got a really cool interview with Erica Muscat, who's playing Frances in the movie. Stay tuned.
Mentos residence La Riche by Delimar. Studied for exits and weak spots, so you can get the job done in a flash.
What job?
You need to kill Don Minto.
Kronoloġija ta' deformitajiet mistura taħt qmis preċiża, ferq pinġut. Xi jħalli l-uliedu mal-karta rosa. Qalb tippompja d-demm, it-tiqiru jċaqqas il-memorja, memorja spulpjata. Xi jħalli warajh mal-era missier, mal-falliment, l-insuffiċjenza. Xi nħallu warajna?
Francis, I need to know what happened to my father.
Jekk jiġri xi ħaġa ħut li ħsiebha l-murin.
ħadd ma ħajkun jaf x'in tagħmel, Rich. Għal ħadd ieħor inti mort Londra għal xogħol. Imma Alla hu. Alla jkun jaf x'għamilt. That's what you've been planning? Is that what you want our legacy to be? Fucking Axis?
Io lavoro al bacino di Carenaggio. La mia famiglia ha un tetto sulla testa. E i miei figli possono andare anche all'università. Tutto grazie a Don Minto.
Eileen, fejnu missieri.
Welcome back to Lovin Daily. So tonight the highly anticipated film Sri Prejosaros Velenuzi will hit the big screens. And with me in the studio is Erica Muscat, who plays Frances in the film, and together we're going to be discussing the film and its launch, I guess, and everything that went into making it. So to start off with, like, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Difficult to follow up that news, but I'm actually doing okay.
So for those of us who haven't read the book, maybe don't know much about what the film is about, briefly set the scene for us.
So, briefly, it is set in two time periods. So we have present time, which is actually 2012, and 1984. And it all stems from a fictional assassination attempt on Don Mintoff in 1984, and how the repercussions of that affect both the commercial and political scene in 2012, and also the interactions and relationships between parent and child in the present day, and how those secrets and that kind of keeps churning underneath.
Had you read the book before?
I'd read it before Martin called me in for the audition. I had obviously Alex Velagera as part of the movement against censorship laws in Malta, and I was involved in theatre at the time, so we're dating back, 10 years the battle began. So I was really curious to see whether this book had any kind of inkling into how he viewed and his point of view. And so I'd read that, and it was such mixed feelings in a good way. So because it was both intriguing and disturbing. You're reading it, you're thinking, okay, there's the murder plot, and that's really, really interesting just from a viewer's point of view. But then you have the way he describes the mentality of present day Maltese people. And you're reading it and you're going, that's my people, that's us. That's not a very nice way to describe us, but it's true.
I was going to ask, do you find it relatable? Did you find the story?
I do, and I think as soon as I started reading it, that was the thing that shocked me the most, was I'm reading this character, I really don't like them, but at the same time, you don't like yourself a bit because of that, because you're seeing it reflected in yourself, and
so
you're
see yourself in
completely.
In the character.
I think there's so many similarities between the language issue is very big in this.
Okay.
So you bring in the English versus Maltese. I grew up in a bilingual family, so purely bilingual. So mother, grandparents speak to me in Maltese. Dad grew up in the UK, so I would speak in English then. So then going to school and the political ramifications that had on me was massive. So my character is somebody who speaks English. Chris Gallia's character speaks English and Maltese, and there's the whole comment about why he chooses to speak English, or he chooses to speak Maltese actually instead of English. So for me, that's very prevalent, because it's such a divide in our country. It's so easy to say you're one political party because you speak one language versus another, and I found that.
And I suppose, I guess we do talk about it more now, but for a very long time there are kind of to a certain extent unspoken divisions that shaped kind of how this country works nowadays, but we never really discussed.
It was a source of bullying,
yes,
in a way. So it was so unwritten as a law that this is what's being done, and you assumed. I remember I was in sixth form, and a particular teacher said, if you speak one word of English in here, I will bash you against the wall. And he said it very lovingly. But he was right, and I realized I hadn't been speaking Maltese as much, but there was this very clear, if you don't speak Maltese, you're not one of us.
Yeah.
And I remember being really offended by that, and I still am offended by that, because we're bilingual, and that's who we are. So these came out in the book, and along with that came out the tinier things, like how do you behave in a family? How do we assume that because you come from the north or the south or whatever it is, you behave in a particular manner, which is ridiculous. Malta is so small. It's like everybody should be what they do. So it just these tiny things that he really brought to the surface, and I really enjoyed reading.
And I guess it's great for the country to be able to see it depicted in a kind of in a film, because like as we said, we maybe speak about these things, feel them, but we rarely ever have them depicted in a film. What about the character? Did you have a favorite character reading the book? Did you get the character you wanted?
I surprisingly. My character wasn't as in the book. So my character was a very, very brief reference to a type of, or a genre of person you can say in Malta. And then Theo and Martin took it and they said, don't worry, you're auditioning, but this character is going to become X, Y, and Z, and I won't say what she becomes because it's part of the plot. But when I read it, I loved Maureen's character.
Okay.
I thought there was something about the woman in 1984 who has to stay back and keep her mouth shut. And at the same time, they were an incredible driving force. We talk about Malta today and we still kind of use this patriarchal, like you're saying, work harassment and all that. But the woman in the household in Malta is so Mediterranean. And I see it come across in other cultures, like Mexican cultures. And it's this strong, strong woman who you think doesn't really have a say, but underneath is all this happening. And I really love that about the way Tina plays her. She does such a beautiful job at it. She's playing Maureen in the film. And when I was reading the book, that struck me. And I think Frances is kind of the contemporary version of that woman. She then became the continuation of what these women started. So yeah, I mean, I have to be honest, I always kind of get attracted to the female character because I'm a woman and you try to see yourself in it. When I was a kid, I was very attracted to male characters because there weren't that many good female characters, so you get stuck on just going, like, he's the hero, or the anti-hero, and he's going to get things done or whatever. And now women are being fleshed out, so I'm getting really excited about reading books and watching movies and going, I can associate myself with that character for once.
And it's important for especially for younger girls to have these characters that they can kind of look up to and associate with so what about filming? How was that? It happened at the start of COVID, I guess.
It was a 4 or 5 week period. I was in so they shot for 2 weeks to do mostly the 1984 period, and then I came in and we did till the end, which was the contemporary. And it was smack bam in the middle of COVID. New restrictions had just come in, but the country wasn't telling us what to do. So we weren't getting restrictions from government. Martin was getting them from what was happening in Europe and internationally abroad with American films. And he kind of devised the safest protocols for us. So I got tested, and when we were on set, everybody's in masks. Nobody came out COVID positive from this film. I don't know how, because it was sweltering heat. So just even the spaces you're in is consistently like, but it worked. I mean, he was so, we had like somebody come and check with us first day and say, listen, we're going to go through these things. These are what we're going to hit. Like there's going to be food in one corner, which you don't touch unless you're given a takeout. Then there's the coffee section. Make sure that, the biggest issue for me is the disposable cups, which they were very careful to try to use like as much as paper products as possible, but I mean that's COVID for you. It's just
sent us back a couple of years.
A couple of decades, I think, when it comes to protecting the planet. But,
so obviously, as we said, the film deals with a period in Malta but maybe lots of people don't really know much about.
We try not to talk about it.
It's always surprised me how kind of in history, we'd learn everything from the Phoenicians all the way up to the war, but then it just stops.
And we always talk about the invaders. We never talk about the day-to-day life of the Maltese, and whether we're talking about the Maltese during the time of the Phoenicians, or whether it's the time of the colonials, or whether it's the French. We talk about the big issues that come up. We have 1 or 2 lead characters, like in the 1984, it was Mintoff and Fenakadami. But nobody talks about what happened in the houses and how people as neighbors just wouldn't speak to each other because they had an inkling that they might be on the wrong side. And suddenly you have neighborhoods that become these warring factions. And it's heartbreaking. I mean, it's really heartbreaking because we had spent so long being invaded by outsiders and having to bow ourselves down to this, that suddenly the person next door to you, that was the person you went to for a bag of wheat or for an egg, suddenly this person is persona non grata. And it's heartbreaking, I think. And the fact that we don't talk about it, I think says something about the trauma that has left behind.
And is there anything you'd like the film to achieve? Is in this respect, I guess?
Conversation. For me, I think it's, if you come out of there feeling, oh, that was a nice film, we failed. If you come out of there going, I want to kill somebody, or verbally speaking in the sense of, I want to rectify that, then we've done our job. And I think there's a lot of miscommunication. Like I was really fortunate. I grew up in what I call a mixed family in Malta, meaning points of view from all across the board. So we did have conversations, and it never affected the love in the family. But at school, we didn't. At school, it was you're on your side, we're on our side. When the elections come along, we don't even discuss. And that, to me, is a breakdown of democracy, because the whole point of democracy is you discuss the other side, you try to understand. You may not agree, but you have to try to understand. And I think what this film does is, it's so easy to go, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. And then what Boat Addicts did, and Theo managed to do with the script, is then you have moments and you listen to another side, another point of view. And because of the way it's placed, you have a moment of enlightenment where you go, that's not what I thought was happening. So if that comes out, if there's even just that tiny bit of somebody coming out, that's not what I expected, I'm hopeful for where we're going.
It's actually quite true, because in a sense, even though we live in such a closed space, it's difficult sometimes to put yourself in other people's shoes. The film's generated a lot of excitement. Probably the most that I've experienced so far. What do you expect the public's reaction to be to it? I mean, aside from what you hope for it.
So we've had test audiences,
okay.
And the test audiences and we've had both sides, both political parties, even AD, and it's been a nice mix of audience testing. We've had foreigners watch it. There was definitely a question about the bilinguality of it. We are purely bilingual. So my character shifts between English and Maltese according to what she needs. Okay. You have the past time, which is Maltese. Present time shifts between sometimes pure English, sometimes pure Maltese. So foreigners have been watching it with subtitles, and they're loving it. So everybody who's come out has gone, it's like a light bulb goes off. And I think there's always going to be backlash. You're always going to have people that are just, this is what I believe, this is what I think, but I honestly don't think those people are going to watch it. But they should. They should.
So you expect it to maybe even offend some people?
I think offend is a big word. I think catch them on the wrong side of the...
Okay.
Maybe, yes. I think there's definitely a likelihood that we're going to get backlash for it.
And so looking at the film sort of industry in general, like, do you see this as part of maybe a stepping up of
oh my
the
God,
level?
everybody keeps talking about the level about Maltese film. I think the talent in Maltese film is phenomenal. I think one of the biggest issues we have is the limited number of good scripts. Yeah. So because the Screen Malta has now only just started a screenwriters fund, a proper screenwriters fund. The way I say this was the National Book Council. They did an amazing job, but realistically, every single year you will have maybe 1, 2, 3 really good books that can be developed into film. Which means the rest of the time, you just need scripts being churned out. You need production houses to have a pile of scripts thrown on their table, and they go through box after box and find the one script that then they submit to audience tests, and they say, what do you think about this storyline? What do you think about this genre? Are you interested? So as brilliant, as brilliant as this could be, I am really fond of this film. I think it's done a really good job. I think they've gone outside the box with it. Unless now this company is going to be supported, and it's going to have the trust of the industry to do another film and another film. And what that means is they go to them and say, I'm willing to give you money, and look at all these scripts, choose one. I think the film industry in Malta is always going to have these one-off wonders, and we've had a couple. I mean, for me, Limestone Cowboy was one that I absolutely adored. I thought Simshar told an important story. I thought Lutsu now is coming out. So we do have films that are beginning to tell these incredible stories. I think more women need to be in them. I've said this before, so I'll say it again. I think we need to see more with female leads, because the majority are male. But we just need a more supportive system. We're looking a little bit less at the service industry and a bit more at the indigenous. I think the indigenous needs more faith. Yeah. It needs more faith. I think they've proved themselves now. I think we're showing what we can do. So I think we just need to go with it.
So the film hits the cinemas tonight. I don't know, your final message or what you want to tell all
Well, if anybody has any questions, there's going to be 2 Q&As. One of them is going to be tomorrow on the 7th, and that is with the director of the film, Martin Bonici. And then there's going to be a Q&A with myself and the other cast members on the 8th. And those are after the 18:25 screening on both nights. So come watch, get your own impression, decide what you want from the film. Don't let other people tell you what it's going to be, because that's definitely not what it is going to be.
So thank you very, very much for being here with us. That's it from us. Have a day full of lovin'.